When we have crossover news, Joe. We have crossover geopolitical news and paranormal UFO news. Can you believe that? We do.
Yeah, I've been on the show before.
I guess you have, haven't you? There was a suspected UFO shot down over Russia about a day and a half ago. I'll bring this up on screen, and then we'll just dive into it. There's a news report that I will play over here. There's really not much to be shown on screen, so I'll just play the news report, and here we go.
Russian air defenses, Melissa, did say that they shot down a UFO. They actually released some video of it. We're looking at it here. This was reportedly shot down in the Rostov area near the Ukraine border. The governor of this Russian region said the UFO was a small-sized object in the shape of a ball and was flying roughly 1.5 miles high in the sky on January 3rd when the decision was made to shoot it down. Now, it is not clear what the object is. It's certainly possible it was a Ukrainian or maybe even a Russian drone related to the conflict. We don't know. Still, though, back in September, the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine claimed the skies over Kyiv were swarming with unidentified flying objects. So add this to our long list of what was that?
There you go.
Okay, so wait a minute. So is this what we're seeing now? That's the video of it getting shot down?
Yeah, that is the video that has been going around. And all we were looking at, for anybody who's listening at home, is just a bright light coming from the ground, going up to the sky, supposedly shooting a ball of light. But I don't even see the ball of light in this video at all. That's what
look at this. Look at these two. Look at these clowns.
Yes.
I love these reporters. They look very serious, like they are 100%. I mean, this may be the biggest scoop, and it's only January.
Yeah, well.
Hey, that reporter enjoys the biggest scoop every night of his ice cream.
Yeah, he's enjoying big scoops all the time. He's
a bigger boy. It's fine,
Chocolate chip.
So this has been going around to quite a few news reports.
What's the source on this other than like random ass YouTube videos? Do we have an actual source?
Yeah, Jerusalem Post is on this. I have one from
actual source.
Well, I got just quite a few. Just type down Russia shoot down UFO, and it's quite a bit. Now, in that news report, he said it could have been a Ukrainian drone or a Russian drone that was shot down. They didn't even mention that it could be a U.S. drone that could have been
Chinese
shot
drone
down.
or NATO drone or anything. Yeah.
Now, if people remember, I do, back in, I think, 2016, 2017, there was a very, very fast-moving drone that strafed Iranian troops that were shooting artillery at it. It was just a glowing ball of light, and it flew super low to the ground, and there is some video out there. Very hard to actually see that. And then a few months later, there was video that came out of Utah of a fast-moving ball of, it was a silvery kind of object that was moving thousands and thousands of miles an hour. Joe and I talked about that at length. If you look on YouTube, there's like a 30-minute clip of us going over and over the video. It's like 4K resolution video of this UFO going straight across the land, pretty clear. People try to debug it, claiming that it was like an insect close to the camera. I don't know. It wasn't. And then now we have this. So I think it honestly, what they were probably shooting down was a Ukrainian drone or one of ours doing some kind of reconnaissance, like something that was attached to us, and they shot it down. But you'd imagine if this is a fast-moving drone, it could have evaded this anti-air missile system or whatever,
High-altitude reconnaissance drones do not move quickly.
No? Well, the ones that I see, the ones that I just referenced, they certainly did. So this may have been older tech, not the latest and greatest.
High-altitude reconnaissance, so it's just loitering over the area. It was over an airbase, so they shot it down.
Yeah.
So this thing's they putter along there at 150 miles an hour. So they just run a race car pattern and they just a racetrack pattern and they shot it down.
So it's not like what we think of UFOs, like aliens.
No, I would say that's a
Pluto.
translation thing. They
Yes.
shot down an unidentified aircraft, which got translated as unidentified flying object. Oh my God, it's a UFO. But
If it was
Now-
truly an alien, that's remarkable, and that should be
that
big
was
news.
the Vulcans showing up. Let's go land over here. Blam.
And
If it were truly playing into our ongoing theory about this long-term disclosure, soft disclosure coming from the U.S. government, they would have referred to it as a UAP,
yes, correct.
but they didn't. That's another one.
But the Russians, at least as a culture, they're fairly open to aliens and extraterrestrials. Like as a people, they are. They have a fairly long history of folklore around this kind of stuff. I don't know how the media over there reports it. Over here, for decades and decades and decades, when that subject gets brought up, the news media just makes fun of people, calling them crazy, delusional, or they saw, Santa Claus in the sky or swamp gas. They really dismiss it. But over in Russia, they kind of take it a little bit more serious, or at least they will indulge in the thoughts a little bit more. But in some more Russian news related to paranormal stuff in relation to geopolitics and the conflict currently going on, I have this headline, and I'll bring this up on screen right here, please. Here's a headline: Russia is afraid of Western psychic attacks.
That's good news.
Oh, yes, you heard me. Russia is afraid of Western psychic attacks. And this was written not but a few days ago. So this is a current fear of Russia when it comes to psychic attacks. And so this is written on the 3rd of January, 2023. A few days later, the Russians shoot down what they claim to be a UFO. So keep that in mind.
A psychic UFO.
Well, if you dig deep into the UFO history, you can't separate psychic related topics and consciousness and UFOs. They're in the same ballpark. They're not the same game, but it's in the same league, if you know what I'm saying.
What if the UFO was carrying psychics who were going to do some up close actual remote viewing?
Oh, well, then you just have to deliver. You don't even have to deliver the psychics or the remote viewers anywhere close to the theater of war.
It's better then, right? You just put them right there, and they can remotely view it with their own eyeballs.
Okay, fine. And then with binoculars is what you're saying. They have they send over guys with binoculars.
Oh, we should market some remote viewing binoculars.
Okay, well, back to this article. When it comes to Russia fearing psychic attacks from the West, there are plenty of reasons these days to wonder if Russian President Vladimir Putin and his cronies are off their rockers. But a recent leaked memo from the Kremlin reveals that those in charge of the Russian government are further down the rabbit hole than most of us realize. The memo, published by The Insider, a Russian news outlet in exile, outlines how the Russian Federal Guard Service, the FSO, which protects high-ranking officials such as Putin, would handle the invasion of Ukraine or any other war spilling over onto the country's own soil. It focuses on psychological preparedness, ensuring that the FSO officers would have the moral and psychological support needed to resist what the memo calls a potential massive ideological attack. But the Russians aren't simply worried about the usual wartime propaganda like the sneaky radio broadcast or underground newspapers. Instead, the Kremlin is mounting preparations for what it calls a psychological infection of personnel by an enemy who would manipulate them through hypnosis as well as through unknown mystical and psychic powers. You got that so far?
No, but it almost sounds like they're worried about like just media propaganda if it's like wide scale like that.
They're worried about any and all types of influence on their troops.
They should ban TikTok.
Maybe they have already. Is TikTok allowed in Russia?
I don't know. It's just full of influencers. So if you don't want those people around.
The memo warns of psi generators and hypnotic abilities used by foreign personnel. Beliefs in mysticism, mystic powers is relatively common in Russia, where roughly 20% of the people have visited a psychic and more than 60% believe in some form of magic. Not a lady.
Really?
Yeah, I like I just said before this, their culture over there is much more open.
You said they were open to aliens, and now you're saying they all believe in magic.
They're open to the paranormal. You got that?
All
Okay.
right.
You understand me?
Broadly. All right.
Do you understand that?
Not really, but.
Okay. Well, such fears. Let's see here. So, like 60% believe in some form of magic. They go on to say they talk to a Russian expert who says this issue of hypnosis and telekinesis, whatever it is they're attempting to do, I think the Russians truly believe it. Most of us are still trying to exist in the real world, and the Russian leadership are not. They're not trying anymore. Such fears may be enforced at the top. It's been long rumored that Russian leaders, including Putin, believe in mysticism, astrology, numerology, and psychics, as well as a conviction that the rule over a greater Russia is precedented. And we've talked about this. We talked about previous articles. It's hard to tell what is Western propaganda that is hyped up versus what is Russian belief systems of the higher echelon of the government. We talked about the reindeer blood, the magic reindeer blood, a few episodes ago. Sacrificing reindeers and chopping off their antlers because the antlers of reindeer provide good luck and good fortune. That's a real thing they do over there. Now, whether or not Putin takes part in that, who knows? But it's not uncommon for leaders of any country to consult mystics, seers, and just occultists in general in order to gain insight into whatever kind of political goals they may have. The Reagans did that with astrology.
Did.
Well, yeah, you're telling me what Nancy Reagan learned through astrology she wasn't talking to Ronnie about it during bed when they were making sweet
just
whoopie?
liked his jelly beans.
Yeah, well. So this all seems a little crazy to your average person, right? I know Joe doesn't buy this. He thinks this is probably bupkis. Am I assuming that correctly, Joe?
Something around that.
Yeah.
Or malarkey.
That's right.
Yeah, it's hooey. You know.
Well, there is...
Here in this country, Mike, we only believe hard science given to us by pharmaceutical companies.
Correct. That is
Yes.
That is correct, Cretched.
I
Oh,
don't have my mask on. I'm sorry. I have my mask back on.
Old Cretched. Saying it like it is.
That old Cretched.
Yeah, that's true. But up here, I have an article say 5 true stories about the military's research into paranormal activity, and this documents a lot of what we already know about some of the stuff that the CIA was doing with the MK Ultra and the Project Stargate with remote viewing, but it also insinuates that the intelligence communities that were investigating this paranormal research on the U.S. side basically were saying we have to investigate it because the Russians are investigating the exact same thing. That we only were dipping our toes in the remote viewing water because we know the Russians are doing it. It's a psychic Cold War is what essentially what it amounts to. So we have like with this, the top 5, it all started with the Nazis, some of whom were obsessed with black magic, which is correct with the Vril Society. Hitler and the Third Reich were actively lobbying occultists for advice and goals with the Third Reich. And then you had the Cold War arms race spilled over into psychic research. And so it goes basically it's the little snippet here. Now the CIA and KGB would conduct similar experiments, each side arguing that the other side's program required countermeasurements in order to defend against them. So I have to hire Jean Grey of the X-Men because the Russians got, the Crystal Lady. So I'm trying to talk in Marvel terms.
The hell's the crystal lady?
And it goes on to say, well, I think I forget her name, but
wasn't Jean Grey? Jean Grey is the bald guy who led the X-Men.
No, that was Xavier. Jean Grey was the Phoenix. She erupted into flame and was like this super powerful mutant who rose from the ashes, came back from the dead, and was able to just annihilate worlds by herself. The Crystal Lady,
bunch of nerds.
Crystal Lady was this crystal, you know. But then, like number 3 here, they had that time. A secretary with psychic powers found a downed Soviet bomber, which is true, through the use of remote viewing. Back in, I believe, the late 70s, they were able to use remote viewing to find a downed Soviet bomber in Africa before the Soviets could get to it. So very handy dandy to have some psychics in your pocket to use to find some pretty interesting things. And then, obviously, the men who stare at goats, that Project Stargate scenario. There's a documentary called Third Eye Spies that people can take a look at. Does a pretty good job. And so as I was kind of looking through all this stuff, because Putin's very concerned about psychic warfare. If he's concerned about it, that means we're concerned about it. And especially coupled with the previous show when we talked about the report about Havana syndrome. And the most recent report put out by the CIA, they said there's nothing really to worry about because it's all environmental stresses, the health of the individual. And the CIA says it is not the act, Havana syndrome, is not the result of a hostile act by a foreign power. There's no microwave radiation. There's no direct assault. It's all basically people who just coincidentally work for the federal government and all have very similar symptoms of being sick and pretty severely injured when they are closely aligned to embassies or high-ranking, entourage. But I did a little digging, and I found this PDF. I'll put this in the show notes. People can look through this. And this just details some of the projects that did happen. And this is titled Russian Book Translation Project Results. So someone was looking at what the Russians were concerned about and what the CIA was doing when it comes to how do you influence people through technology and quasi-paranormal ways. And this is a pretty lengthy PDF, and there's various sources cited. And so when it comes to should Putin be concerned about psychic influence, propaganda, whether it's coming from a radio or remotely access the brains through psychics, well, there is ways that you can directly talk to people through microwaves. And maybe they're doing this as some sort of like subversive campaign. The West is using some of this high technology to directly get into Russian troops' brains. And so
okay, I like that. So they're setting up these drones that are beaming microwave things into the Russians' heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Navy Yard shooter and all the other kind of stuff we hear about.
Yeah, just because that guy was carving stuff on his gun and hearing voices doesn't mean he wasn't hearing voices.
Yeah, so
that's true. You can hear voices without microwaves.
You just naturally, just for fun.
Yep.
And so
just for fun.
Some of the, according to this PDF, I'll put it in there, some of the scientifically proven symptoms that can be the result of radiation, directed radiation through microwaves, is microwave hearing as part of a DIA report in 1976. Then you have acoustic psychocorrection, transmission of specific commands into the subconscious. Then you have the EMR signals to the brain causing visual disturbances, as demonstrated in 1985. Injection of words, numbers into the brain via EMR waves. And then manipulation of emotions via magnetic signals to the brain. Reading thoughts by deciphering brain's electromagnetic signals. This is as demonstrated in year 2000. So everything's footnoted here in this PDF, very well thought out. And I think it's fairly within the realm of real possibility that we have this technology, we're using it, and that the Russians have this technology and maybe using it, and that there is a real, like, below the surface conflict going on. Yeah, there's the overt Ukrainian kinetic conflict, but then you have maybe someone like us flying drones over that is bombarding the populace with low frequency waves to influence their emotions, to cause this unsettledness within Russia, to spur some sort of rebellion or an emotion that would lead them most likely to rebel against their government. There you go.
Well, microwaves by definition would be high frequency, not low frequency.
Okay, yeah, I know.
It's not to say you're wrong on that.
Extreme, like, so what they had on the guy's gun was extremely low frequency, the ELF waves, but the microwaves, yeah, much higher.
Yeah, well, the Navy does that. They base it out of is it Kansas, Nebraska? They broadcast all over the planet, through the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, what about your microwave? Does it do this stuff?
Well, it doesn't work as well as I would hope. There's no door on it. I mean, it works well. It works well if you want to, like, shoot, like, thoughts into your own head and heat a hot pocket at the same time.
You just put the cold hot pocket in your mouth.
You got to stick your head in the microwave to get thoughts transferred in there. And they're not good thoughts.
When you use it, you do it like when they do x-rays where you, like, leave the room.
you put food in the microwave, then leave the room and go huddle behind a lead blanket.
Honey, will you put the hot pocket in the microwave for me while I go stand in the living room behind this lead blanket?
Give us an email at ourbigdumbmouth@gmail.com. Check out obdmpod.com for all the social media and donation links.